What's up, you guys? It's your boy Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. This is a special edition of Basketball Conversations. This is the Hall of Fame edition of Basketball Conversation, you guys. I know it's been a while since I've done, my normal basketball conversation show. I've kind of had to put it on hiatus a little bit, you know what I mean? Because I've been busy with, with work and everything else. But today, this was a good time to, bring the show back and discuss over my thoughts on the whole 2020, Hall of Fame basketball class. And that was a really well done, presentation. But much love to my subscribers, much love to my supporters out there that have been supporting my channel heavy. Even when the times when I wasn't able to, upload any vids and all that, y'all keep me motivated to keep me doing all these great videos for you guys. And I really enjoy, giving my 2 cents on basketball, sometimes other sports, and sometimes, issues outside of basketball too as well. You know what I mean? And but today we're gonna discuss about my thoughts on the whole 2020 basketball Hall of Fame ceremony, but also my thoughts on some of the key speeches that were very rewarding and really very historical to listen to. You know what I mean? And but I want to personally, congratulate all the members of the 2020, basketball, Hall of Fame class. Obviously, the three main headliners of the entire class were obviously Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and the late great Kobe Bryant. Um, Kim Milkey is also in the Hall of Fame. Rudy Tom Jonovich is in there as well, and also Tamika Catchings. And I gotta say, for people that don't know, as you guys know, I did play in that famous unified basketball game back in 2015 in Madison Square Garden. I played with Tamika Catchings. I think this is when after she retired from the WNBA. I believe, I'm not sure, but I remember playing with her, man, and she was one of the most nicest people that you'll ever want to meet. And we had a blast together, especially at that one particular scene when I was, talking with her, just having a normal conversation with her. You know what I mean? And she is one of the most, gracious people that you'll ever meet. But that woman can ball. I'm gonna just say it that way. That woman can ball, and she's definitely one of the greatest women players, and one that doesn't get talked about a lot. And so, it was rewarding to hear her speak and finally get her just due as one of the great women players in the game, man. And as I see some people coming into the bid, what's going on, Gideon? What's going on, man? And we got Lewis Sports Network. Hey, make sure to subscribe to Lewis Sports Network. I'm gonna tell you something. That man puts out monster content. You know what I mean? Especially during the play-by-play of of baseball, football, and especially during the NBA season as well. I would do so, but I just don't have the time to do it. But that man has plenty of time to do it. But you know what I mean? His content's amazing. Make sure to subscribe to Lewis Sports Network. Absolutely, man. But obviously, the main takeaways from the whole entire as I said, were the three main inductees. That was KG, Tim Duncan, and Kobe. The thing was is that, with these guys, all three of these guys, they were the face of the 2000 era. No doubt about it. These guys were transcendent players that really defined a generation. Now I'm going to start with Kevin Garnett. Um, Kevin Garnett, as most of you guys already knew, was the first player in 21 years to skip high school and head into the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Some people would say it was Sean Kemp. Not really, because actually Sean Kemp went to community college, you know what I mean, and came into the NBA as an 18-year-old. But KG straight out of high school, it was not heard of though then. The last player that actually did that was Moses Malone, and he had a Hall of Fame career as well. Rest in peace of Moses Malone. But to really watch, Garnett rise as a great superstar from that youngster that came into the NBA with all this talent in the world, and basically, to watch him develop as one of the greatest, power forwards to ever play the game. He was ferocious. He was intense. He was in your face all the time. And I remember games watching at the Target Center where that guy always gave 110% effort every single time he came in onto the basketball court. And to really watch him over the 13 years that he was in Minnesota, rocking the Target Center, I mean, the Target Center was never that loud before KG came, and it hasn't been loud after KG left. When KG ruled the Target Center, that place was rocking. Especially during that 2004 postseason run when the Timberwolves made the Western Conference Finals and when he won his only MVP award, man, that building was jumping. It was jumping. The fans came in droves, and that place was electrifying. It was probably one of the most intimidating places to ever play during that small period. You know what I mean? But those that was just great memories of that. And I feel sort of a way when it comes to the Timberwolves because they didn't do Garnett a justice. Because you had this great, transcendent talent all those years in Minnesota, and yet you couldn't figure out a way to build a championship team around Garnett. And that one time you helped Garnett get over the hump to get to the conference finals, you already just break that team apart, which led to more losing down the line, and more importantly, which led to the trade in '07 when he went to the Celtics. You know what I mean? I'm still resentful of the Timberwolves, not just a bad drafting, but the poor leadership as well. They just never been able to put it together. You know what I mean? It's no wonder why we've never been able to have any success in the postseason, even when Garnett was our main cornerstone franchise player. But I always will be grateful for what he did. His accomplishments speak in of itself. But anytime that he played for your team, he demanded excellence and he demanded intensity out of everybody. And if you weren't willing to give that on the team, I swear to you, man, he will ride you to the moon. You know what I mean? And so it was really much an honor and privilege to watch him play for all of these years. Let me check out the chat real quick. Gideon said that speech was amazing. He said, R.I.P. Black Mamba. Yep, we're going to get to that in a few minutes. Louis Brennan said, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Kobe are the last of a dying breed. Indeed. They are definitely a last of a dying breed. Those three guys, they defined the era that I grew up into. And you're not going to see that often at all. I know for this generation is LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. But I don't think those guys had much of that bigger time impact than all three of those great players had. But he wishes that, the one thing that I wish that these newer fans would realize is that you have to really understand how these guys, came to become the players that they became. It wasn't easy. They had to earn their stripes. Now with Tim Duncan, with Duncan, he was never introduced to basketball until a later age, 14 years old. And remember, he wanted to be a swimmer, but then a huge hurricane came over the Virgin Islands and kind of taken away that passion for swimming. And he had to really learn the game on the fly. He had to learn how to play the game on the fly. And I'm going to tell you something. If it wasn't for Dave Odom of Wake Forest that took a chance on this lengthy kid from the Virgin Islands, I don't think you would have heard of Tim Duncan's name even now. You know what I mean? But, he took a chance on him because of the potential that he basically was obtaining for himself. And boy, did it pay off real well. And so, the one thing about Tim Duncan is that Tim was a guy that was very quiet, didn't attract attention to himself, but his play did all the talking. All right. And the one thing that I took away from that speech was that Tim Duncan was a guy that, was always dead serious. You never felt any kind of, nervousness coming out of him, even during big games in the playoffs. He always had that silent confidence within him. And when he talked about his speech, it was the first time that I actually saw quite a bit of nervousness. And I felt like this was the first time Tim Duncan was allowed to be human for a change. Because there's many times where Tim Duncan basically was stone faced all the time. Never showed any emotion, never showed any disgust, never showed any, enthusiasm or anything like that. He just kept, everything to himself. And no matter what and no matter what people have to say about how Tim Duncan was not a marketable player and all that, his play speaks for itself. Without Tim Duncan, the Spurs don't win 5 championships, and David Robinson would have no championships on his fingers. That's an absolute fact. If David Robinson didn't have Tim Duncan on his side, they would win no championships. All right, because when David Robinson won the MVP, he ran into Akeem and got tore up in a way that I've never seen a superstar get tore up like that before, and probably ever since. And so Tim Duncan was a transcendent player for San Antonio. If there is a great list of great San Antonio players of all time, people could have Tim Duncan at the top of the list. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Now I know there's going to be older fans that might say George Gervin or David Robinson, but to me, Tim Duncan was number one all time for me as a great San Antonio player, but probably more importantly as a great overall power forward. And him and Garnett had legendary battles, and him and Kobe had legendary playoff battles over the years. They were great rivals for each other. You know what I mean? It pretty much, listen, if those guys didn't have to run into each other, they would have won at least 5 or 8 championships. That's how great those players were. And that's how great the Lakers and Spurs rivalry were of that early 2000s period when they were basically battling each other in the playoffs for championships. That was like the Lakers and Celtics type of rivalry back then in the early 2000s. But congratulations to Tim Duncan. He's well deserving of that. Let me check out the chat real quick and we'll discuss Kobe Bryant. Louis Never says, Garnett in the press conference before today said he wished he might have went to Boston sooner. He probably won more. I agree. Listen, if the Timberwolves would have traded him probably in 06, because by that time the Timberwolves were pretty much a dead horse at this point. Absolutely, they could have won at least 2 more championships. In fact, I'll tell you this: if Garnett didn't injure his knee in 2009, the Celtics would have won back-to-back championships, and the Magic would not even make it, wouldn't even scratch the NBA Finals. All right, that injury in 2009 with KG robbed them of their chance of back-to-back championships. They should have won back-to-back titles in 08 and 09. That's how dominant of a team the Celtics were during that period. You know what I'm saying? Uh-oh. Look who we got here. Ooh-wee. The lovely Tay Brown. Ooh-wee. Well, Tay. Let me tell you something, girl. It's always a pleasure when you come around. You are so damn fine. But much love, Tay. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. She just said you gets nothing. Oh yeah. I always get something from you. Even though you don't want to give it, I always get something for you. You just never know it. Ooh. Damn, you so damn fine. Okay, let me stay focused here. Before Tay goes in on me again. We got some more people in the building. Jonathan McFarland, what's going on, Brent? Welcome by, man. Welcome by. So now the big one of all, Kobe Bryant. I'll tell you something. Kobe should be here today having his speech. He should be here. He should have thanked all of the all the coaches that helped him get to where he's at, all of his teammates, especially with Shaq, Paul Gasol, you know what I mean? D. Fish, who was there for him all these years in Los Angeles. And it's just sad. It's sad that, that Vanessa had to be the one to do the speech. And actually, honestly, I was shocked. I tell you, that Vanessa was willing to do the speech. And the way I saw the whole presentation of how that was turning out, it was probably the best decision that she could ever make. Because honestly, I don't think Michael Jordan was willing to do it again, because he was still crushed about the whole situation. Even looking back after they did the whole funeral ceremony in Staples, I mean, the man was literally broken down into tears, like he lost his little brother. You know what I mean? And when she thanked Michael Jordan for being the presenter, you could still see the emotion in his eyes. You know what I mean? And I just thought that, you know what, it was a great call. And I gotta say, if Vanessa's speech didn't move you to tears, I don't know what else to tell you, bro. I'm serious, man. And it made me so happy that at least that Shaq and Kobe were able to mend their fences together before it was too late. You know what I mean? When they did that sit down interview one on one with each other, it was at least 2 years prior to his death. They were able to sit down, and reminisce with each other and show their love and appreciation for one another. Because here's the thing about that whole duo thing that I think people are so misunderstanding about. Those two guys were two great players of their own right, but both of them needed each other to help establish their legacies. If Shaq never played with Kobe, and if Kobe never played with Shaq, all right, they don't win. That's just the facts. They don't win. They would be still been great players, but if they don't play with each other and learn how to play with one another, they don't win. You know what I mean? That's why it took a long time for them to really understand one another and learn how to play with each other. And that's how Phil Jackson was able to do so. You know what I mean? Even at the expense of some personal relationships, the fact that they were able to coexist together and win three straight championships is a remarkable accomplishment. You know what I mean? But the one thing I was so happy with, Vanessa was that she mentioned Kobe's parents, and I felt like during that whole in the aftermath of Kobe's death that the parents really didn't get enough of the attention that they deserved because they did a fabulous job of raising an excellent young man in Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? Because remember, Joe Bryant, played in the NBA for about a couple of years, and then played basketball overseas. And and Kobe's mother Pam did a great job of raising a young man in that NBA family and learning how to play basketball and understanding how to be a professional. All those things came together when Kobe Bryant started, developing as a basketball player and developing into the great player that he became. And so I was just happy that she mentioned Joe and Pam, and they were people don't understand how much of a difference they were. Now, it is worth mentioning the fact that you know they didn't have the greatest relationship between Kobe deciding to marry Vanessa, when she was 18 and when Kobe was 22 at the time, and they were pretty much estranged for a little while until they had their first child together. But I'm glad that Vanessa was able to mention them because they don't get enough credit as much as they deserve. You know what I'm saying? And yes, Louis Sports Network, absolutely. They didn't get enough. They don't get enough credit. In fact, they don't get any credit, to be honest with you. And I'm glad that Vanessa was able to, mention that because they deserve a lot more credit than they deserve than they normally would get. But you know, the speech was beautifully done, and you know, I really think that at the end of the day, you know, Kobe should be here doing his speech, and it's the fact that he isn't really torn me up. And from a guy that watched Kobe Bryant, from his rookie year all the way up towards his retirement, it was just a sad, sad thing to see. You know what I mean? But she held it together, and she did an excellent job. Talking about all the good things about Kobe. What he was able to do. Not just on the court, but being the loving father. What I mean, doing the fatherly responsibilities and the fact that he was able to make to every birthday of his daughters, every of their special events when he was able to during his career shows a lot about the character of this man. You know what I mean? And the fact that he was able to win an Oscar, being the first professional athlete to win an Oscar, that just lets you know where he was heading to. I mean, he was heading to be a storyteller and learn how to be a movie producer and all that. But I really think that, you know, to be honest with you, man, it was really just rewarding to see her spoke in front of millions of people and just let people know about what Kobe represented for it more than anything else. You know what I mean? And it was the best speech of the night by far, and it's gonna go down in history. And it was a great speech. I'm very happy for Vanessa was able to to speak in front of millions of people. Originally, I was one of those people that wanted to see Vanessa do it. But then when Michael Jordan was given the offer, he was willing to do it. But I guess, but then eventually, Michael Jordan, asked Vanessa if she would be willing to do it, and she obviously didn't hesitate at all. And so it was a great speech, and I'm glad that she was able to, show her love and affection, not just to Kobe, but to her children as well. It's unfortunate that, you know, that everything happened, 2 years ago, and it is what it is. Actually, last year, I should say, but it is what it is at this point. But let me check out the chat real quick. Lewis Sport Never say another thing to give Kobe credit was winning those two championships with two different rosters, winning with Shaq and Paul. Struggling with Shaq for a few years, then tried with an MVP and two chips and finals MVP awards. Yep, absolutely. Especially all the criticism that, you know, he took after Shaq left. You know what I mean? That many people thought that Kobe was the reason why that team broke apart. And he took all that criticism and, he rechanneled his game. He became a much better shooter. He may become much better of a post player. You know what I mean? And his defense was much more sound. In those back-to-back championship years. I believe to this day that was probably the best version of Kobe Bryant by far. He was much more fundamentally sound. He was much more in tune with his game. He didn't have to rely on his athletic prowess as much. You know what I mean? But if you wanted to see more of that great athleticism that he had, Afro Kobe is where it's at. You know, it just depends on what your take is. Now, here are my other two takes from this whole ceremony that I liked as well. I like the Rudy Tomjanovich speech. You know what I mean? Um, for a guy that should have been in the Hall of Fame, years ago, you know what I mean, for leading the Rockets to their two only championships is remarkable. You know what I mean? And remember, a lot of young fans don't know about this, but this guy nearly died, especially when he got squared hit by Kermit Washington, in which he had his nose completely shattered and spinal fluid was leaking out of his nose. You know what I mean? And it pretty much derailed his career as a basketball player. But he ended up being a fantastic coach. Learning how to be a scout, an assistant coach with the Rockets, and then becoming the head coach in '92. And the best thing about Rudy Tomjanovich is that he was the ultimate players coach. Players love to play with Rudy because he was able to communicate effectively and was able to relate to a lot of the players on the roster. And I will tell you this: the greatest accomplishment besides that great run in '95 was how he was able to get Akeem to trust his teammates and be willing to be a playmaker in the post while being a scorer at the same time. Because remember, there was a certain stretch of years, even though Akeem was still dominating on the offensive end and was being a dominant force on defense, he never trusted his teammates. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Rockets didn't help him much in getting him the necessary talent to make him become the playmaker that he was. But when he had, Ori, when he had, Kenny Smith, when he had Maxwell, and then Otis Thorpe, and then Sam Cassell, Mario Elie, guys that were able to space the floor, shoot the three, but also being able to penetrate and create, shots, not just for themselves, but for others. Then Akeem learned how to be a great playmaker in the post by basically accepting the double team and learning how to kick the ball out from where the double team is coming from, where they get open shots. And just like what Vernon Maxwell said in that Clutch City interview on NBA TV, that it's either pick your poison when you play against the Rockets. You're either going to double Akeem and give up one of the 3-point shooters some daylight to shoot a three, or you're going to let your center play one-on-one against Akeem and risk getting tortured in the post. He's going to get his 40. It's about which poison do you want to pick. You know what I mean? And so Rudy Tomjanovich was the innovator basically of the post first offense, and it was the post first offense that really helped the Rockets become back-to-back win back-to-back championships. And the greatest line of all of his career is that don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion. And that was well profound because that Rockets team in '95 I mean, let's be real. That team should have been eliminated in the first round. But the fact that they were able to, win the championship as a sixth seed, becoming the lowest seed in the history of the NBA to win a championship. I mean, that's just unreal. I mean, remember, the Knicks made the finals in 99 as an eighth seed, but failed to win the championship, becoming the first eighth seed to do it. But the Rockets to do it at seed as low as six. Remember, they had to beat a 60-win Utah Jazz team with John Stockton and Karl Malone. All right? And then in the second round, coming back from a 3-1 deficit against Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns, and then winning every road game against the San Antonio Spurs, and the large one dropping 35.5 points per game against the league MVP David Robinson. Let me tell you something. That postseason run defined Rudy Tomjanovich's coaching career. It's what made him a Hall of Fame coach, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame, years before 2020. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. I agree that players, make great coaches, but without the coaches given the necessary directions to guide the talent, you know what I mean? The players won't be able to fulfill their potential as great players. And Rudy Tomjanovich deserves all the credit for that. A lot of the credit. You know what I mean? So let me check out the chat real quick. Lewis says, Rudy is a humble guy and a coach I had tremendous respect for, and thank the king for him being the reason that he's in the Hall of Fame, the ultimate compliment. Exactly. He said, coaches make great players, but when they allow the coach to coach and helps the coach build a resume when they win. Right. What's up, Samurai Beast Warrior? He said, why the Lakers didn't win it all in 2011. Very simple. The Mavericks were on a roll, and also by that time, the Lakers were pretty much at the end of their rope. I mean, listen, they made 3 straight finals and went back-to-back championships. Listen, at some point, teams are gonna get better, and the Mavericks were pretty much a team that was on a mission to win a championship for Dirk Nowitzki. You know what I mean? So that's just it. Jonathan Martin says, salute Gideon. Okay. Now, there was one particular thing that about Rudy T's speech that really drew my attention. And that was the fact that he mentioned Robert Horry and how the fact that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And that to me, I think really raised a lot of questions about, Robert Horry's, legitimacy in the Hall of Fame. Now, yes, he has 7 championship rings and he's made big shots throughout his entire career when he was with the Rockets, when he was with the Lakers, and when he was with the Spurs. But if we're really looking at, his entire resume per se, from totality, he only had 3 seasons where he averaged more than 10 points per game. And that was during his 5 seasons with the Rockets. You know what I mean? And remember, during that 93-94 season, when they won their first championship, remember, the Rockets were going to trade Horry to the Pistons for Sean Elliott. But after Sean Elliott failed his physical, the trade was rescinded. And so there was a reason why they were going to trade Horry, because there were times where Horry is a reluctant offensive player. He doesn't always look to shoot the ball a lot, even though he was a really good shooter. He never was a guy that looked to try to dominate the game with his offense line. He was basically the complementary team player, sometimes to a fault. But also, the thing that, with Horry is that, with no disrespect to him, and yes, he's made big shots out of his career, and he deserves credit for it, especially for all the times when he's won championships 7 times. But his highest honor in the NBA is when he made all rookie second team in his rookie year in '93. He never made an all-star team. He was never, an all defensive league player. You know what I'm saying? He was never an all defensive player. I say an all NBA team player. You know what I mean? If he had at least 5 All-Star appearances and made some NBA teams, I think more the defensive side, then maybe he has a stronger arm to complement with the 7 championship rings. But by that in his face value, to me, I just don't see all Robert Horry in the Hall of Fame. I really don't. But hey, they let Casey Jones in the Hall of Fame. I mean, why not? So, it just is what it is. But I felt that it was kind of interesting when he brought that up. Now, do I think there's going to be some people, do I think he's going to probably get politicked into the Hall of Fame? Maybe. Maybe he will in the future. I'm not sure. But to me, in my personal opinion, he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm just sorry to say he was never an all-star. He was never an all-league, player. That just is what it is. And somebody had the audacity to say that Robert Horry was better than Scottie Pippen. Newsflash. I want to make sure that we want to end this conversation right here and now because I know somebody's going to bring that up. Because Scottie Pippen, if we're being really real with ourselves here, Scottie Pippen is an all-time great, and he's one of the 50 greatest players in NBA history to go along with the 6 championships. He made, first team All NBA 3 times, second team, twice, third team twice, and he was on the All Defensive team 8 straight times. And in 1995, he led the NBA in steals, and he's one of the 50 greatest players of all time, and 2 gold medals, and he was part of the member of the Dream Team. Sorry, that is ridiculous. Somebody would ever have the audacity to say that. You know what I mean? 1 second. So the point I'm trying to make to you guys is that you know Ori is a phenomenal role player that did his part in those championship teams, but his resume ain't strong enough for the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry to say. With due respect to Rudy T, and I know that Rudy T is the ultimate team player, and he has a lot of love for his players. But if we're looking at Ori's resume from its face value, he's not a Hall of Famer. That's just it. I'm not trying to disrespect Robert Ori because of of what he not because of what he did. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying that I'm just being giving you facts here. His resume is weak to put him in the Hall of Fame. That's just it. You know what I'm saying? But that was just an interesting thing that that took away from this whole ceremony. But overall, it was a great ceremony. That 2020 class is a very loaded class. I might match it there with the '09 class when Michael Jordan entered into the Hall of Fame that year with John Stockton and also Dennis Johnson too. You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed it. It was a great ceremony. They obviously did it in a bigger venue to promote social distancing because we're still living under a pandemic. So, but it was a real. I like the staging too. The staging was very, very. It was bigger, but I like the design of the staging though. It was really very very roomy too. To be honest with you. But you know, before I end this video, I just wanted to also discuss over the new inductees into the Hall of Fame for 2021. Now, earlier today, I posted a video, announcing that Ben Wallace is now enshrined into the 2021 Basketball Hall of Fame, which he deserves more than anybody else, and I'm glad that he is. But also, prior to starting this live stream, it was also announced that now Paul Pierce, the great Paul Pierce, is now going to be inducted as part of the 2021, you know, Hall of Fame basketball class. And I'm happy that he finally, gets his just due. You know what I mean? Paul Pierce was one of the great clutch scorers in the history of the NBA, especially during the 2000s. You know what I mean? I remember there was a period of time in 2002 where he led the NBA, in fourth quarter scoring. That guy was clutch as it gets. And winning that championship in Boston and winning Finals MVP that year, even though he had, tremendous help playing with KG and Ray Allen, he still was the Finals MVP, and he shined in that '08 season, especially that great duel with LeBron James in that Game 7 in the '08 conference semifinals. Boy, it was one of the great classics great classes during the entire decade. You know what I mean? Those guys, standing toe to toe, both of them dropping 40 in Game 7. You know what I mean? It was just a classic game, and I was happy that Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett got their championship rings because they waited almost the entire decade to win a championship ring, and I'm just glad that they were able to win it. It made me feel good too. You know what I mean? So, but overall, the Hall of Fame class was really well done. I loved, the inductees in there too. You guys know my feelings about Kim Milky, but Kim Milky is still great, Hall of Fame coach for women's basketball. I still have gripes with her, especially about the comments made, that she made when she was coaching Baylor in light of the sexual assault cases that were happening on campus involving the sports program, and about the fact that she tried to, defend her school, but did it in a very, an offensive kind of way. I was like, that woman is just so that woman is so ignorant to me. Now, I'm not denying what she did as a great basketball coach and a great player herself, but to me, what she those insensitive comments were pretty much, they were just disgusting to me. It was just disgusting, and especially the fact of how Baylor, for years, allowed, horrible misconduct, to happen on their campus involving their athletic program, and the NCAA, you know, you know, it was just disappointing, man. I'll just say that. All right. Oh, what's up, Brandon Nicholson? How you doing, man? He said, I was actually looking forward to your live video and very disappointed I missed you. I wasn't aware of your live. Man, you good, bro. Listen, man, listen. You always been holding that down. You're actually still one of my early subscribers too, man. You know what I mean? Listen, you know how YouTube is. You know what I mean? They don't always send out notifications though, bro. But I'm always gonna send out videos, and I might do a little bit more live streams as we're prepared for the 2021 NBA playoffs. You know what I mean? But you're always welcome. You're always, encouraged to express your opinion. You know what I mean? I rarely block anybody. You know what I mean? Unless if you're trolling around or you say some offensive stuff to me or to my wrench people and to my subscribers, then I'm blocking yo behind. But everybody's encouraged, to speak. You know what I mean? But either way, the Hall of Fame class was really well done. You know what I mean? There was a lot of good stuff in that Hall of Fame class I really enjoyed. You know what I mean? And the 2021 class is off to a good start. Finally getting one of those guys that I wanted to see in the Hall of Fame, Ben Wallace, in there. And more importantly, guys, Ben Wallace is the first undrafted player in history to make the Hall of Fame. Talk about a guy that was literally undrafted. That same 96, draft class, and he was undrafted. And yet he made 4 All-Star appearances and won the Defensive Player of the Year award, you know, five at least four to five times. You know what I mean? And it should have been a three-peat, or what you could say it should have been 5 times in a row if it wasn't for Artest taking one of them in 2004. But either way, man, I mean, Ben Wallace in the Hall of Fame, I'm just so happy that he got in there. And also Paul Pierce, too. Now, the other guys that I do want to see in the Hall of Fame, you know what I mean? Chris Webber belongs in there. I know there's going to be some people that are still going to say, well, well, Chris Webber doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because the code breakers are erased. FYI, and as I was about to say, FYI, FYI, sports page. Oh man, Lamont Lane, you just came in on time. I was about to go in about your little take about Chris Webber. Listen, I know this. I know Lamont has made it clear that he doesn't believe Chris Webber should belong in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about that. But here's the thing: Chris Webber was a transcendent talent and averaged 20 points a game throughout his career. And at his best, he averaged 24 to 25 a game. You know what I mean? And more importantly to that, listen, I know there's gonna be a good section of people that's gonna say, well, his Michigan records were erased, and that's really the critical part of his story. But here's the thing. But here's the thing. And no, he did not get in the did Chris Webber get into the Hall of Fame. Lamont, I'm about to get in now, and I'm about to get in on your ass again. Here we go again. Again. I'm gonna say it again, and I know Lamont's listening. All right. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna say it, and I say it with a straight face. There have been inductees in the Hall of Fame that had their records erased, but are still in the Hall of Fame. All right. Let me tell you something. You could say that his Michigan records were erased, but you still had the footages. You still have all the video to see what he did throughout his entire career. All right. There's no denying that. Listen, you can say that he was erased on record, but guess what? The things that he did in Michigan, it happened. I don't care what the NCAA did because the NCAA is a bunch of hypocrites. All right. It happened. All right. So at the end of the day, Chris Webber will get his time in the Hall of Fame. And no, it's not over for Chris Webber. Cut it out, bro. Cut it out. It ain't over for Chris Webber. He'll get in eventually. If it's not in this class, but hopefully in the next few years he'll get in. If they don't get in, something's wrong here. All right. Same for Tim Hardaway Senior. Tim Hardaway Senior was one of the great crossover dribblers and one of the best point guards during the 90s. You know what I mean? And we know why he's not in the Hall of Fame. We all know why. But I think it's about time that we start becoming forgiving as a society and accept them in there. You know what, Lamont? I'm gonna come over to your channel. If you decide to do this again, I'm gonna come over to your channel and we're gonna discuss this again. No involvement from anyone else. You and me, one on one. All right, because at the end of the day, you and I, we don't agree on the Chris Webber thing. You don't believe he's a Hall of Famer. Guess what? There's a good section of people in this live stream and a good section of people in the basketball community that say that he is. All right. He said, not good enough, too many failures, too many injuries. Injuries, yes, I agree with you. Failures, no. Yeah, he had his failure. He had some failures in Washington, but he did his thing in Sacramento. Transforming that Sacramento team into a title contender was one of the great accomplishments of his career, by far. All right, and at the end of the day, the NCAA are a bunch of hypocrites. They pretty much listen. The fact that they're able to have no problem wiping away his records or whatever, or wiping away what Michigan did, but yet ignore the fact that John Wooden allowed a booster to pay athletes during the 70s while the UCLA dynasty was going on, to me, is the ultimate act of hypocrisy. All right? No matter what it is, all right? Listen, it ain't baseball where there's about 10 times, there's only a maximum of 10 chances, and then that's it, you're done. This is going to go on forever. Chris Webber will get his time in the Hall of Fame. So, and let me ask you this, though, Lamont. How come is it that Tracy McGrady was able to get in on the first ballot but never got past the first round of the playoffs? How are you going to explain that? How are you going to explain to me that T-Mac, who had a good streak in Orlando, but his injuries took away what he could have been? How is it that he was able to get in on the Hall of Fame on the first ballot and not Chris Webber? Explain to me that. Explain to me that. You know what I mean? Because if we're being real here, if T-Mac didn't have the political support that he had, he should not be in the Hall of Fame. That just is what it is. And I love T-Mac. I felt T-Mac was one of the top 10 premier players during the early 2000s. But at the same time, those back injuries derailed his career. Here we go again. Lamont's going in again. He said, so we're going to lower the standards for the Hall of Fame just because T-Mac finesse his way. Yes, we are, dude, because the Hall of Fame already did that. All right? They already let European players who didn't do anything in the NBA in the Hall of Fame. All right? So are we going to sit here and say that T-Mac, his resume doesn't stack up to what Chris Webber did? Come on, bro. Come on, Lamont. You're not making sense, bro. I love you, Lamont. I know we always have classic debates. We're going to have the classic debates all the time because you and I, we're polar opposites. And I respect where you're coming from. I think you have a very unique mind, and I respect where you're coming from. But we just do not agree on the Weber thing. You don't believe he's a Hall of Famer. I believe I know he is. And it doesn't matter if you have to wait at least 10 to 20 years or whatever like that. If the man gets in, he gets in. I'll give you an example. Harry Carson had to wait at least 10 to 13 years before he got his name into the Football Hall of Fame. That Hall of Fame is actually one of the most hardest Hall of Fames to get in. There are a lot of players that have been left out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame that have not been getting in. You know what I mean? And so Chris Webber will have his time in the Hall of Fame. If he doesn't get in 2021, 2022, or 2023, he's got to be his opportunities. You cannot keep denying this man in the Hall of Fame. It's just, if you keep doing that, then something is not right here. You know what I mean? It is what it is on that. He said, okay, let me see this. Okay, well, if that's the case, then let Rip Hamilton in as well. Aaron McKee, Jamal See now, Lamont. Now you're just trying to troll us right now. I'm not falling for that because that's one of the things you try to do. You try to lower down the argument to try to suit the narrative to try to say what your argument is, bro. We're smarter than that. We're not. I'm not falling for that. All right. Now listen, Rip Hamilton. He won a national championship, and he was the most outstanding player, and an NBA championship, and he was also a three to four time All Star. He might have he might get in the Hall of Fame someday. You know what I mean? Same for Chauncey Billups too. You know what I mean? Listen, T Mac. Let's be real about something here. T Mac got into the Hall of Fame, but he blew a 3-1 lead against the Detroit Pistons in 2003. All right. If he was a great player, if he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, he should have closed out that series. He should have beaten that Piston team. But no, he didn't. That should tell you something. All right. Chris Webber made a conference final back in 2002. McGrady never did. So what are we trying to say here, man? And the only time he made the finals was when he was basically a bench warmer in 2013 with the Spurs. He had nothing to do with their title run. He ain't played that many games in that playoff run. Come on, man. Let's be real about something here, man. Let's be real here. Now he just said, let's just let anyone in. Lower the standard of greatness so the 90s bums can be eligible. Lamont, bro, stop that. Stop that, bro. We're not talking about the 90s here. I'm not even mentioning any players from the 90s. You mentioned that. All right? I gotta go. I gotta get someone going in a few minutes here, but I'm gonna say it on this: the guys that deserve in the Hall of Fame, C. Webb, Hardaway Senior, all right, Chris Bosh, all right, those guys deserve to get in. Okay, so that's just those three names I can name off the top of my head. If you want to name any other players that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, you could name it in the chat in the comment section below, man. But Lamont is just going in on everybody. He getting everybody there. Loose Sport Never says T-Mac with the Magic had the 3-1 lead over the Pistons 3 and struggled to lose the last 3 games of that series. Yeah, he blew a 3-1 lead in the playoffs. And you mean to tell me that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer? I'm not saying he's not, but first ballot, come on. Seriously? Come on. Come on. He said, facts, Lewis. Don't forget about Webber being shafted by the refs in that 0-2 finals and also in 0-3. 0-3, I wouldn't count that because he got hurt. He tore his meniscus in that 0-3 series against the Mavericks, and pretty much was never the same. See what it says. He needs to go straight to the Hall of Shame for snitching and calling that silly time. Shut up, Lamont. You're so disrespectful, bro. You're so disrespectful to C Webb, bro. You're so disrespectful, bro. Listen, I'm gonna come back to your live stream. I want you one-on-one, bro. I want you one-on-one. Nobody involved, just me and you. You know why? Because right now you're really being very disrespectful right now. You really are, bro. I love you, Lamont, man. You have very good points. You know your basketball, but bro, the Weber thing is where we really part ways with this whole subject. Do I have to humble you again, Lamont? Do I have to humble you again? First of all, you would have done the same thing in that 93 championship game. If someone would have yelled at you, hey, call timeout, and you're not thinking out there, you would have done the same thing. I don't even want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Don't even want to hear it. But yeah, that's just was it, you guys. But it was pretty much a very well done presentation, man, and and he basically said cap, bro. I'm capping. You're saying I'm capping? No. You're the one that's being capping right now. All right. Let me tell you something. I told you I will be there in your live stream, and we're gonna have to discuss about this again. Until it rings through your head that Webber's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? I'm gonna keep defending Chris Webber. That's where my stance is. All right. You don't like Webber for whatever the reason you got. That's fine. He said, when was the last time we saw a Coffee call an enormous timeout in a pressure situation? Bro, there have been other pressure situations that have been far worse than that. Come on, bro. Don't be like that, bro. Don't be like that. Lamont is never Lamont. I gotta give Lamont credit. He is the kind of guy that he's never going to back down from his stance, and he's basically he's gonna stand on the square no matter what. He said, "Win, cap." I'm gonna get on your live stream, and I'm gonna make sure that you understand where I'm coming from in this. All right, no matter what, no matter when you do it. But I gotta get going, guys. I gotta get ready for work in the morning, man. But listen, Lamont, if you ever do a live stream, I will be there. No problem. I will be there. I will be there, front and center. You and me. I will be there. You and me, one on one. We're gonna discuss about the Weber conversation. All right. I will be there. All right. No cap. I will be there. All right. He said, I really don't want to max either of you next. Lamont, stop. I will be there. No cap. There will be no capping. There will be no ethering. Just you and me, one on one. Nobody involved. Just you and me, bro. All right. Jonathan Varr says, I'll be the ref. I'll be the ref. All right. Well, I will be there. That's right, Lamont. Here's the other thing. And Jonathan Varr made a good point. Lamont, don't forget J.R. Smith pulling off the Pete Carroll in the 2018 finals. That's right. That was a way farther egregious mistake than Weber's mistake was. All right. He said, I apologize in advance. No, bro, don't apologize. I'm not offended by anything, bro. I am not offended by a damn thing. All right. You and I are just debating basketball. I'm not taking it personal. It's nothing personal. It's just basketball. It's just basketball. All right. But I got to get going, though, guys. But much love to you guys. It was a great Hall of Fame induction. I really enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And the 2021 class is not too shabby either. We're just going to have to wait and see who are the next inductees in the Hall of Fame. And if Chris Webber gets in there, I promise you, Lamont is going to have a heart attack about this. I guarantee you. He's gonna have a heart attack. I promise you that. But anyway, man. Anyways, I gotta get going though, guys. I gotta get ready for work in the morning though. But much love to you guys. It was really fun there. The playoffs are coming up, you guys. We're gonna see some great basketball, and we're gonna see a lot more coverage out of me throughout the entire postseason. All right. So Lamont Lane, whenever you have that debate, you got my number. Just text me. When are you gonna do it? All right, and we'll basically it's gonna go down. All right. He said, "I'm safe for another year." Sure, you are, Lamont. Sure, you are. But Lamont, you have my number. You know where to find me. But anyway, you guys, much love to you guys. It was great seeing you all again. We'll try to do some more live streams in the future, though. But I will be there, front and center of Lamont, whenever you have the live stream. You say tomorrow? All right. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there front and center. Y'all take care, guys. Have a good night.